Right. Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to be able to introduce the next talk at our Oktoberfest. Cameron Laird and Dinda Calista from the fintech app Cleo are going to be talking to us about how we scaled paid marketing with automation and predictive models. Cameron's a marketing analyst, currently driving user acquisition and growth at Cleo. His career trajectories span both technical and marketing roles. He started off out of university in an IT leadership program at General Electric before moving into a more marketing-focused role. And in recent time, he's been working with stakeholders on how to understand marketing incrementally, optimize budget allocation, and automate bidding to make a more streamlined and scalable marketing team. Dinda is an analytics lead at Cleo, supporting analytics across the marketing and product growth squads. Previously, she was a data scientist at Meta, aka Facebook, and Trivago. She spent most of her career on marketing and acquisition topics, working on global marketing attribution model and automated bidding algorithms at Trivago. So over to Dinda.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me just fine? Yeah, well, quite a lot of people here. Before we start, I'm quite curious to know, is anyone here working as marketing data scientist or marketing analyst? Oh, nice, it's quite a popular job. Anyway, so I got a story to tell before we start. So at Cleo, we got a few people who joined us to the data team. And before they joined, they told Connor, our head of analytics, that, oh, Connor, I work with attribution data in my previous company. I don't want to touch it anymore. If you make me touch it, I will not join. So that's the sort of things, like how this kind of like marketing and attribution data can make you really, really hate it. Now we're going to tell you why we don't hate it. So for today, we're going to shortly introduce about Cleo, our company, and then share with you about the challenges we were facing in scaling our growth marketing. And lastly, we're going to share about all the stuff we did to overcome those challenges and what is our current focus. So let's start by introducing the company. Who is Cleo? Well, we've started doing AI before it was cool, because the company started in 2016, and our mission is to empower people to build life beyond paycheck. And we do this through the different features in our app. So we got stuff like budget features to help you maintain and set your budget every month, get a cash advance in case you need extra money on that month, as well as to help you build credit score. If you've never heard of us before, maybe that's because most of our users are based in the US. And this year, we hit 7 million users. And this is our growth marketing story. Again, maybe you've never seen our ads before, but these are some examples of the creative we are showing in our paid channel. So we advertise on TikTok, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and many other channels. For several months, we had a tough time scaling our acquisition efficiently. So as you can see in the chart there, the new user lines were staying the same. It was at the same level for many months, even though we were increasing our spend quite significantly month over month. And this is bad, because it means that for every user we acquire, we are spending more money on them. That's not good. When we look at our key marketing metrics like CPA or CAC, which is just the total cost divided by the total users we are acquiring, it just shoots through the roof. That's not good. And that's not good because we want to be acquiring more users. We want to keep growing, and we know that acquisition is a key part of it. But we don't want to just burn money for acquisition. We don't just want to burn money for growth. That's not a thing anymore, especially after the crisis and everything. So we keep track of a metric called ROAS really closely. So it's basically just ROI. For every marketing dollar you spend, how much money you're getting back in return from those users. The good thing is, at that time, we were already optimizing towards ROAS. But it was clearly not enough, because as you see from the previous chart, it wasn't good at all. With CPA going up, that means that unless we manage to get more revenue out of every user, then our ROAS is not going to be high enough to be sustainable. So then we tried to figure out what are the key decisions we need to make in marketing and how can we support our marketing team with data and predictive modeling. So we map out these 4 key tasks and the different types of things we can do to support them. And we thought that we were already quite good at 3 of them, but we were clearly lacking on optimization and budget allocation. So to walk through them one by one, choosing the right goal metric is just about agreeing what you want to optimize for in, like with your marketing. It could be acquisition, it could be the number of new users, or it could be revenue. It's different for every company. But for us, we have agreed on something, and everyone optimized towards that. And then the second thing is optimizing every campaign, making sure we or the channel managers knows how, like, what should we do to optimize stuff. And we've done quite a lot of ROAS testing and optimization. There are some more stuff we could be doing, but we thought that we were already quite good in there. And then there comes attribution. How do we know where should we be attributing those goal metrics? Like, a user can see our ads in multiple channels. They might be seeing our ads on Google Ads today, and then tomorrow they remember the name of the app, and then they just go directly to Play Store or App Store and then download them. Where should we attribute those users? We've done quite a lot of work in this area, and we thought that that shouldn't be our priority because we've done quite a lot. But with budget optimization, how do we spread the budgets across channel to maximize the benefits? We haven't really done anything, and that's what we decided to focus on. And before we go any further, I wanted to give a little bit of spoiler that it works. All the stuff we did, as you can see after the red line, that was when we started delivering more marketing science projects. So apart from the Silicon Valley Bank pullback, which is marked in there, it was all the chaos with Silicon Valley Bank, and we decided to not spend too much on marketing on those periods. Like, apart from that, everything looks quite good in the last few months. And don't worry, I'm not accidentally revealing company secret numbers in here, because our CEO actually shared some of these numbers on his Twitter. Go and check out Barney's Twitter account if you're curious to know more about this. So just search Barney CEO, Cleo CEO Twitter. And also, you can see on the left-hand side, on the left chart, it shows the CPA, number of new users. So we are acquiring a lot more users than before every month, and we are doing so at much lower CPA. And what did we do? Cameron's going to share some of the cool stuff we did to do that.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully you can hear me. Perfect. Yeah, so thanks, Dinda. So yeah, there was 3 things that we have done in terms of marketing analytics that has helped this. So I'm going to talk through those a little bit. So the first one is budget optimization and also looking at channel response curves. So why did we do this? So as a growing company, we're looking to increase our marketing spend, and trying to know where to increase our marketing spend for the channel managers, for the head of marketing, is probably one of the hardest things. So it's also difficult to understand if we spend an extra $10,000, £10,000 in a channel, what do we expect to get back? So as part of this, we built out some channel response curves, built out a dashboard to help our channel managers understand what they're going to get back. Allowing them to be able to see the incremental cost per acquisition that they would get and what the expectations were, so that we could assign budget accordingly. If you know a little bit about marketing data, so we have an overarching channel, so we have like Facebook ads, for example, would have campaign level, and then which would be kind of the main campaign. Under there, we would have an ad set, which is a group of ads which is serving a certain purpose. And then we have ads as well. So we kind of built it out at different levels of aggregation so that they can make the decisions at the right granularity that they need to. And then how did we do this? So using lots of open source packages, so libraries such as SciPy, Matplotlib, Stats Models, and Seaborn. There's lots of stuff out there that you can easily get your hands on. Working with the channel managers to understand, as I said before, what level of aggregation do they want at. Do they want it at a campaign level? Do they want it at an ad set level? What helps them be able to optimize their campaigns the best for them? Each channel manager is different, so building out specific charts or views for the different channel managers is key, working with those. But also, one of the main key things that we have to take into consideration is also having a good look-back window. As a growing business, if you're looking at data with a long period, what the landscape is now versus what it was potentially like 120 days ago, 90 days ago, might be quite different to what it is now. So making sure we have a smaller look-back window so that we only take into consideration data that's relevant to now, and also trying to take into account seasonality as well, if there is seasonality in the business. Cool, so yeah, so this is just a simple example of some stuff that we've built out. So yeah, it's just some simple response curves, understanding where, if we spend more, where will it stop? Like if we, so for example, you got spend on the axis here and then estimated LTV. So as you can see here, the more we spend, the kind of LTV that we get back kind of drops off. So do we want to be spending here? Probably not, because we don't actually get as much LTV for what we're spending. So we want to try and stop it here, but obviously, depending on commercials, are we trying to grow as a company? What targets we've got to hit? Obviously, we potentially might want to be here, but we just have to be less efficient. So yeah, a few things that we are using it for are, as I said before, deciding where we want to increase our spend on different levels of aggregation, channel level, campaign level. For things like Apple search ads, we've got keyword level as well, so building these out for keywords. What keywords should we put our budget towards? Then also one thing that we did found was quite interesting is also working out the speed of change that we should put into our marketing spend. So you quite often find if you are putting an extra 10% marketing spend in over like a small period, it gets quite inefficient. So trying to work out what the week-on-week spend change we want to go towards is, and what's most optimum towards making sure that CPA doesn't spike as well. Cool, yep. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is acquisition time series forecasting and understanding our seasonality. So yeah, a little bit about why we did this. So in a fintech business, it's not as seasonal as quite a lot of like e-commerce businesses. Like we don't go into certain months and have massive spikes like travel or e-commerce for Christmas. It's quite hard to understand when our metrics change. Why are they changing? Is it something that we've done? Is it something in the market? And then we were finding a lot of the analysts were spending time investigating these issues instead of actually working on long-term strategic pieces that they should be. So they'll get one of their stakeholders come to them and say, okay, why has conversion dropped, or why has new user acquisition numbers dropped? And there'll be a lot of time spent working on why this has dropped, rather than actually looking at the seasonality, understanding the seasonality, and the fact that this will increase after a little while. So that's kind of the reasons why. And then also, it's quite hard to explain to stakeholders before the fact that it could be seasonality if you haven't done any prior analysis. You can't just go to them and say, I think it's seasonality. They're going to tell you to look in the data and find something for them. So having an explanation of your seasonality, what you expect to happen over a period, is quite key. And then, so what did we do? How did we do it? So we tried a few different models. So tried REMA and also profit modeling. So I'm sure a lot of you have potentially tried profit modeling. It's an open source package from Facebook. It's pretty easy to add data in and get an output. Like if you're not like clued up on Python stuff, it's fairly self-explanatory. There's quite a lot of resources out there if you want to give it a go. Tested quite a few different regressors to try and improve the models. So one being Google Trends data, but we found this didn't actually improve the models, and it was actually causing it to be less accurate. So we decided to use the profit modeling with a marketing spend as a regressor. One of the things is, because we can easily plan out what our marketing spend is, if you're adding additional regressors like impressions or clicks, etc., to try and get the model more accurate, you also have to predict what they will be in the future as well. So if you have a like a metric that you know what it will be, such as marketing spend, we know how much we theoretically want to spend, then it's easier to try and use this. Cool, yeah. And then how are we using it? So as I said before, we've got metric changes. So is there increases or decreases in conversion? Are they expected? And then obviously that kind of makes it easier to explain to stakeholders. Scenario planning. So if we spend, say, 10% more than we're wanting to spend at the moment, what will that look like in terms of new user acquisition? What will it look like in terms of CPA? This allows us to kind of predict and plan for different scenarios like increases, decreases, work with the commercial team to understand, as a business, where do we want to be in 3 months, 6 months? How much should we be spending? And it just makes it a bit more cohesive conversation between different parts of the business when they're all on the same page. And then the last one is targets and goal setting. So working with the different channel managers, the head of marketing to understand, are we going into periods of high seasonality? What do we expect? And then from the high level numbers, we can break that down, working with the channel managers to give them their targets, making sure they're not too easy for them to attain, but also not unrealistic, that then they're not going to hit their numbers as well.
And go back to me again. The next one is about marketing mix modeling. So it's actually quite a hot topic right now. A lot of companies are looking for someone who understands what is MMM. So MMM is not actually a new concept. It was what most companies use before the age of digital attribution in order to quantify the impact of their marketing activities or marketing spend. And recently, as you know, because of all the development in tracking privacy, a lot of people started looking into this approach again because it can help you when click-based attribution is getting more, as click-based attribution is getting more and more unreliable. This can be your way to understand the impact of your marketing investment. We decided to use that not only because of all the problems that we know with click-based attribution, it is also for us to understand, to add additional input to help us decide how we should allocate our budget. And we built it in-house. There are a few options you can do. We decided to use lightweight MMM from Google. Many other companies decide to use third-party agency. There are also a few products that you can just purchase, and then you get access to, you connect your data source to them, and then you get access to build MMM. But for us, we decided to build it in-house. And the way it works is it's quite simple. Again, no individual tracking is required at all, so you don't need like a data set with this user ID from this channel. It's not required. What you need is simply just historical spend data by channel over whatever period you want, and then any additional regressors that you think could explain your metrics movement. So for some people, it could be, oh, I've just run these marketing experiments, then you add a flag in there, or oh, I got website visits that I think could explain a lot about how my metrics move. Then some people also add that as additional regressor. And lastly, of course, the most important thing is what is your target metrics that you want to be measuring, or the metrics that you want to optimize for. And you provide that on aggregated level over the period, so you don't need to provide that by channel. It's simply, like for me, if I want to build a daily MMM model, then what I need as the historical values of the KPI is just the daily total of that KPI. So that's quite simple, and then you put that into the model, and some of the stuff you could be getting is, firstly, the attribution. So it will give you a view on what the model thing is the contribution by each channel for the KPI you're interested in. And then second is you can run different scenario, tell the model, hey, I got X amount of money to be spent next month. and I want to maximize on this metric, tell me how I should allocate my budget across all these channels that I have. And we are using it, one, as an alternative view, because we have, as I mentioned before, we already have internal attribution, which is largely based on click-based model, and we also have a self-attribution form in our app. But because we are not sure if we can still trust it, that's why we do MMM, and we look at the result from the attribution from MMM. And then the second use case is to look at the recommendation and then inform us whether we should increase or decrease budget on each channel. We are not yet using the exact numbers that comes out of the model. We are still using it directionally because we want to get the expert opinion of the channel managers, because they will know more about how their channels behave. And as you can see in the example output here, so what this is showing is on the first row, you get the blue bar, which is how we are currently allocating our marketing budget. And on the orange bar is what the model thinks is the optimized allocation in order to maximize the KPI, for which you can see on the second row. That is the uplift that the model estimates if we were to follow the recommendation exactly as it is. And at the top in there, it is an example of the scenario that I was running. So I want to maximize LTV, and I get X amount of money to be spent on the next 30 days. And I want to add a condition because, as Cameron have mentioned a bit before, in some channels, you cannot just change your spending significantly over a short period because that will mess up the channel's optimization. So that's why you could add a restriction. How much money, how much the maximum budget you want to be moving across channel. In this case, it's 40%. And we are not stopping here. With MMM, of course, there are a bunch of quality metrics you could look into to understand how well the model is performing. So you got the standard stuff like mean absolute percentage error or R-hat, like any typical quality metrics for predictive models. But with attribution, it's always difficult to understand whether they are the truth or not, right? Because you don't get a label of, hey, users are actually coming from here. You will never know that for sure. And that's why we don't want to stop there. So here's how we look at our marketing data journey. So first, everything started with attribution tracking, right? Just like standard, having as much coverage as you can in your attribution model. Then move towards where we are now, where we optimize on ROAS, and we do some kind of data-driven budget allocation. But we want to be more precise, and as we spend more, every single percentage of optimization will matter more. We want to know if every single dollar we spend on marketing are truly incremental. And we need to be more precise, and the only way to do that is by running more incrementality testing. And again, as a reminder, what we were getting out of here, all the metrics looks pretty good, and we don't want to stop there. We think we could surpass this even more. Like, if possible, we want to spend more, acquire more users, and spend less per users, which means we get more return on ad spend per user for every dollar we spend. Then Cameron now is going to share what we are doing in order to get there.
Cool. Thanks, Dinda. Yeah, so these are two of the focuses that we're working on at the moment. So firstly is the automated bidding. So on channels where we can't do automated bidding, we're building out some algorithms or rule-based logic to kind of support this. So just for example, on Apple search ads, you've got different keywords which you can target different maximum bids for. So kind of building out some logic so we can dynamically adjust the bids based on certain conditions. So for example, if CPA for the keyword goes above a certain level, we potentially might want to adjust the bid so it brings it down. Or if we see that their lifetime value for a certain keyword is performing really well, we might want to either increase the bid, increase the budget for that particular campaign or ad set. So these are the sort of things that we're doing. For this sort of stuff, you don't have to build out a really big algorithm. It can be theoretically just rule-based. You can build out like a theoretical case when statement. So as I said, if this is happening, then do this. If this is happening, then do that. You don't have to be worried about building out a really complex logic behind doing this sort of stuff. It's fairly simple to get like an MVP one out. So yeah, we're hoping that this will kind of build higher LTV, lower CPA, but also allow the channel manager to kind of spend more time doing more strategic work on the channel. If they don't have to go and manually adjust bids in the channel, or say, for example, at the weekend, we see a dip in performance, they don't have to be worried. They know that the bids will be automatically adjusted, and the performance of the channel should hopefully carry on being efficient as possible. And then the second thing that we have been working on is geo-experimentation. So geo-experimentation is like experimentation approach to kind of test marketing interventions in different specific geographical regions. So as we are based or operate in the US, this is usually like states. So we're building out a geo-experimentation which will be able to run geo-experiments across different states. So this allows us to kind of understand the overall incrementality of our marketing activity a bit more accurately. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the geo-experimentation a bit more and what we've been doing here. So yeah, as Dinda said earlier, we've got marketing spend across multiple different channels. Channels like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, people might see us for the first time and not be in market. So they might not want the product, but they might see an ad for us and be like, okay, this is interesting, let me download the app. Whereas on Apple search ads, it might be a bit of a different case where someone wants to get a budgeting app. So they might search budget app or cash advance, for example. So they're in market for that. So then they'll obviously go and download the app. But both of these channels might play a part in someone's journey. So it's key to understanding if we spend a certain amount of money, what we will get back incrementally. Cool, yeah, so there's a few different steps. This is quite simplistic. But first thing is selecting your treatment groups. So in our case, we do it at state level. So picking different states that we want to run the experiment. We can obviously exclude certain states if we don't want to run certain things. If we've got out-of-home campaigns running in it, we don't want that to kind of detract from the test. Pairing those with comparable control groups. So what we want to do over a time series is match up as closely as possible the control and treatment states so that they're closely aligned, so that when we look to get the results in the post-test analysis, this is as accurate as possible. Running the experiment, so working with the channel managers to set up the experiment, run the experiment, make sure that you can do that level of targeting on those channels. So some channels don't really allow you to do much geo-targeting. Some channels you can do it really granular. So working with the channel managers to understand what works best for what channel, how to set this up, and then obviously running the experiment. Post-test analysis, so I'll go into a little bit of detail afterwards, but we create what we call a counterfactual, which is what we would have seen if the treatment wouldn't have occurred. So creating that and then looking at what the uplift of that is. So yeah, just two basic benefits, but allows us to A/B test where it's not possible. So obviously we can't A/B test where users see our ads unless you're doing it in platform, but then you're relying on their data as well. Cool. So yeah, how did we build it? So we've used an open source library called Match Markets. This is built by someone at Google. So it matches, as I said before, control and treatment over a time series where they match very closely. So this uses a greedy search-based algorithm to match them as closely as possible. So you can select the metric that you want to align by. So you might be testing what the uplift is on users, subscription, revenue. You can choose your metric that you want to do, and then this will run the algorithm, and it will pick the states, or if you're wanting cities, it will pick the cities that most closely align. gives you an output of the control, gives you an output of the treatment, and it allows you to run the test on the marketing channels. So yeah, it provides like a more accurate, so obviously if you're manually picking states, and I know at some places some people manually pick states to run these tests. Obviously, if you're doing that, you can create some biases in this just because you're picking potential states, that your unconscious bias towards those sort of states, and it isn't as accurate as possible. Cool. So on to post-test analysis. So as I said before, so we need to derive what we call a counterfactual. So if you see the dotted blue line, so it's a bit blurry, this is counterfactual. So this is what would have occurred if we hadn't had the treatment marketing. Say if we're launching a marketing campaign, this is what would have occurred if we didn't launch that campaign. So as you can see, it follows pretty much the same trend as we have for the control, because that's what it's modeled on. So it models that out, and then obviously you've got the difference between what actually occurred, which is a treatment line, which is a dark blue line, and then the counterfactual prediction. So the actual incremental sales uplift, user uplift, is the difference between the two of those. So, and then one more thing that you need to take into consideration is also having a cooldown period. So obviously in marketing attribution, you might have a window of like 7 days where you attribute to that conversion. You want to make sure that you've got a window bigger than that. One, to make sure that you pick up all the conversions in the window and you don't lose any. But then also to make sure that if you're wanting to run another experiment afterwards, that the states have gone back to their natural state, and then you can rerun the algorithm to pick up the data for running the next experiment as well. Cool, yeah, and then this is just a little bit about our end-to-end self-serve solution that we built. So it's very basic, but this is something that we have built in Streamlit, which is an app-based product. So yeah, what it is, it's an app which allows our channel managers to go in, set up experiments themselves, run the model to be able to pick which states are in the control and which states are in the treatment area, pick the primary metrics that they want to do, and then, as I said before, because we're doing it at a state level, they can exclude any states if we've got any out-of-home activity, if we've got any activity that they want to make sure that isn't taken into consideration. We're having in the US, there's lots of like regulation changes in certain states, so this will also allow us to exclude certain states if they've got different regulations that we want to make sure is not in the control or test. And then the other part of it is allowing them to understand the results. So this is just like an MVP1 that we've built out. As I said, it's quite basic, but it allows them to see kind of the experiment period, what the counterfactual is and what we observed, and then the difference, and then the cumulative effect at the bottom. So after we've run the experiment, they can just go in, select the experiment, and then they can understand what the cumulative impact of that experiment or that marketing campaign was. So we've just launched this over the last month or two, so we're hoping to actually open source this. So if you're interested in getting it at some point, follow Cleo on LinkedIn, and we'll share it on LinkedIn. Cool, yeah. So just some takeaways in terms of like learnings that we had. So building stuff in-house is not easy. Like you need a lot of expertise, knowledge, people, and time. So it's not easy, but it also gives you like long-term flexibility. Like short-term flexibility, yes, when you're building this stuff out, you can input, output stuff that you want to, you can play around with the data, but also, especially for like the MMM model, as we get into like more privacy restrictions, less data that we have, being able to be in control of the MMM model is actually quite important, personally, rather than having a third-party provider, which you potentially at some point they might have to do all the reporting for you if you're using the MMM to do reporting and understanding the incrementality and uplift of all your marketing. So yeah, the second one is they take time. I'm sure you're all aware, but yeah, these projects take time. You need to make sure that you get stakeholder buy-in from them. So If you don't get stakeholder buy-in from your channel managers, your head of performance marketing, or whoever it may be, like they might expect stuff really quickly, but this stuff does take time. Like working on projects, you've got to build out the requirements, you've got to test stuff, you've got to potentially write down the processes, build it, test what you've built, make sure it's worked, potentially build out some documentation to show people how it's worked, train people on the stuff. So that's just not like 1 to 2 day thing. It potentially is over multiple months. So you need to get your stakeholders to understand that these stuff takes time. And then also start simple, prove the value before spending loads of time on stuff. Similarly to like app development, we talk a lot about like building MVP. We don't really talk about it in analytics much in terms of build something, prove the worth of it, and then spend time developing it more. So I think that is one of the key things that we've done at Cleo. We kind of built stuff quite simply, showed it to our stakeholders, got them to use it, got their input, and then once they were bought in and they understood it, we spent more time, more resources building this stuff out.
Yeah, that is all that we want to share today. But before we close it, we want to share that we are hiring. If you think what we are doing is interesting enough, then the good news is we are hiring for a lot of roles, like literally nearly anything, any roles you could think of, from NLP data scientists, product analysts, either the specialized ones, so we are hiring for payment and risk analysts, as well as general product analysts for some of our new products. And if you got product managers or engineers friend, we are also hiring for them. So scan the QR code or feel free to reach out to me or Cameron. We will just be hanging around in here if you have any questions to ask. That is all.
Great. Anybody got questions for Dinda and Cameron? I've got one over there.
How much overlap do you see from Google, Facebook, TikTok versus your MMM models? Because I think the situation where Google, Facebook, TikTok will tell you they've sent you the customer, but you only see one customer from your end. Do you see this often?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Even before MMM, we already noticed that because normally, in most places, channel managers look at the report in platform, right? And in platform, because we report all of, let's say, like user sign up, for example, they will just claim everything. Each platform will claim everything. But we built a centralized reporting platform because we work with third-party tracking to collect all of the users' touchpoints data, so we can tell that there is an overlap, and we're just going to attribute this user to one of those different channels. So we ask our channel managers to just look at that, like ignore whatever is in platform, look at what we have internally, and then once the MMM come, we also share the result, and it's not wildly different with what we are seeing from our centralized attribution model, which is a good news, because otherwise, one of them would be totally wrong. Yeah. So yeah, to sum up, there is some overlap. It depends on how much is it always depend from time to time, depending on how much we are spending on each channel. But yeah.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you for that. 2 questions. One is, you mentioned response curves in the beginning. Are the response curves also coming from MMM, or did you build them out separately?
Yes. Yeah, these were built out separately. So if you go back one more slide, there's a few different libraries that we used, and there's a few different calculations that you can use as well. So we just built them using these different libraries. So you can there's quite a lot of resources online if you want to build out response curves. So I recommend just having a read. You'll probably find some stuff on Medium. There's some other material which I'll recommend.
Sure. OK. And the second one is, what did you use for the front end to create, the budgeting tool that you talked about? No, sorry, the A/B testing tool.
Yes, so that's using Streamlit. It's called Streamlit.
Streamlit.
Yeah,
okay.
Streamlit. So it's like a web. So I think it's a web-based app. So you can just run it in your browser. So you set it up locally, and then you can run it in your browser. So yeah, there's quite a lot of open source material as well for Streamlit, so you can build stuff as well. People have shared stuff.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, very useful. No, it's just a question regarding the web analytics tracking tool. What are you using?
So we are not. So for web analytics, we have, for context, we are a mobile app. So we work with AppsFlyer to for the tracking, but we also have a separate tracking from our website, which is just from, is it Google Analytics? I think Google Analytics, yeah.
Yeah, just wondering, like, so yeah, also marketing data scientists here, so a lot of things we do similar. But just wondering on that response curve at the very start, when you tell the channel manager to optimize budget, for example, the one you see,
Yep.
You can see sort of, right, that's the optimum region I wanna stay in. How do they consume these results? Are these like daily exports that you would do for them, or is like also app that you guys build? And also I'm wondering, in the context of Cleo, you guys are growing pretty fast, yeah. So with this, I can see I need to reduce my spending to that level.
Yeah.
But then if my target is like 20%, is then the action I need to have a new campaign, or like how do you deal with that?
Yes. So with our budgets, so we do them like monthly. So we quite often would look at this on like a weekly or monthly cadence. So it wouldn't be something that they'd look on daily. They'd probably look at like monthly to make sure that they're increasing where we're increasing budget. And then also, as we make optimizations on the channel, it becomes potentially more efficient. So this might potentially, when we run it again the next month or the next week, it might like flatten off to be more efficient with more spend. So as we do more optimizations, we'll rerun it, make sure that it's using the latest data. And hopefully, if we're making right optimizations, if we're slightly increasing spend and it's not actually, we'd hope that it wouldn't go down to a lower lifetime value based on more spend. But as we increase the spend, hopefully the curve kind of shifts to the right and is less dropped. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, another point to add is also, that's why it is useful to have multiple sources of this kind of thing, because what this is doing is actually kind of similar with what MMM is doing, which is just that this goes one step ahead, right? Telling you should increase budget in here, you should decrease in there. And once, I think a few months ago, we were quite surprised by what the MMM recommend, because for MMM, instead of looking back for multiple months, I just look back over 30 or 40 days just to have recency strong in the model. And we were quite surprised when it told us to decrease spend on one channel, but then it turns out that it picked up the recent trend really quickly, and it was correct that that channel was just performing really badly in the last few days or so.
I have a question about the lifetime value calculation, especially in the context of a growing business. If you've got historical data and look at somebody, for instance, acquired 2 years ago, maybe the product and that person was quite different to the people that are coming through the door today. So how do you balance that aspect of the changing situation with wanting to have a decent run of seeing someone's true kind of lifetime of the product use?
Yeah, good question. Something that we're still trying to find the best way to do it, but for our lifetime value, because we are a subscription app, and not everyone convert immediately, like some users take a month or so to convert, and by that time, it's already beyond our attribution window. So what we do is we are doing some kind of prediction for the lifetime value on users' first day in the app. As soon as they connect their bank account, we can do some assessment and run a prediction, like how much revenue will we be getting out of these users after 1 year or 2 years. And that is what we are using. I think there are 2 different models. Like, we didn't develop it. It was developed by the central data science team, and another one was developed by the commercial analysts. So one of them is just like looking at different cohorts. So as you said, it's a bit of lagging metrics, but sometimes with marketing, there are 2 things that you are using LTV and ROAS for. One is to feed that back to the channel so that they can optimize. And another one is to monitor internally, so you know whether you are you are beyond your break-even point or not, right? And we found that the one that we send back to the channel, it doesn't really matter what is the value, because you just need to change the target in the channel. What matters is the direction, right? This user is more valuable than these users. So whether you send like 10K, 20K, 30K for those users, or $1 to $3 for those users, it's kind of the same.
Okay, I think we're going to have to end there, but I'm sure Dinda and Cameron will be delighted to take questions after this session. Okay, it's time for coffee, so see you 3:15.